Hello, welcome to the Hotflash Inc podcast. Ann Marie McQueen here with you. Just me today. I've got some things to catch up on. I'm going to wing it, ramble. I hope you like it. I'll try to be as entertaining as possible and provide you with some information too. Starting off, we got fan mail this week. It's called fan mail, but when I read it, it doesn't really sound like fan mail. It's from Elizabeth in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Number one, Elizabeth, I am very, very sorry. I hope you're hearing this because can I figure out how to write you back? Like, you sent a text. I have that capability. I turned it on because why not? And before they were like a bit of fan mail, I didn't have to reply, although it would have been nice. So I didn't really figure it out. Now you're genuinely asking a question and I can't reply. And I think this is really weird, but I thought I don't want to leave you hanging and I hope you tune in the next week. So Elizabeth in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, which is in the United States of America, asks, I loved your podcast of the problems with mega dosing E. She's referring to estrogen. I'm wondering, how do I know if that's what my doctor is doing? I'm postmenopausal and always trying to learn about this, but it's very hard to find info. Well, thank you, Elizabeth. I was delighted to get this. The thing is, I'm going to say, I really wish you knew what your dose you're on. What I want women to do is be the CEO of their own health. So I want you to be able to say, oh, I'm on, a 50 patch of estrogen and I pair that with 100 oral micronized progesterone capsule every night. And I have a little dab of testosterone. That's this amount. Like, that's the level of what I want women to know, because I just feel that when you're asking me this question, you're in such a place where you don't have your own power. And I know that you're saying it's very hard to find info. It really, really is. So here's what I'm going to say to do. If your doctor, and I am a journalist, not a doctor. If your doctor was giving you mega dose estrogen, they would need to tell you. And if they were doing that without telling you, well, that's an issue. So I'd like you to look at your prescription and find out what it is. I'd like you to look at the amount of the hormone therapy that you're getting. Google the 2023 Practitioner's Toolkit for Managing Menopause. You'll find that in the International Menopause Society journal, Climacteric. The lead author on this is Susan Davis from Monash University. She's been on the podcast and she is an expert on hormone therapy, and she's very reasonable and in no way an estrogen maxi. You can download it or just look at it online. You want to scroll down. There's the Practitioner's Toolkit for Menopause. And I would look at that if I was you. I'd read this whole thing because give yourself a few minutes to dive into it. This is a really good guideline. This isn't any one guiding body recommendation. This is for the world. And so you could look at this and take it as a guideline. So you scroll down and I'm still scrolling and it's a little embarrassing because I'm still talking to you. I'm still scrolling. Okay. So you get down to the section on a practitioner's toolkit for menopause. That's what you're looking at. MHT dosing. That's menopause hormone therapy dosing. And there you can see CEE, conjugated equine estrogen. That's synthetic estrogen. And it says low dose, mid-range dose, highest dose. I don't know what you're on. So that's the first thing you got to figure out is what you're on. A lot of people are on estradiol. You can see there that a low dose is considered 0.5 meg. People call that a 50 patch. There's 0.75. There's 100 milligrams. And then the highest dose is 1.5 to 2 milligrams. And if you have a uterus, that's essential to be paired with progesterone, with sequential progesterone, a daily dose, for 12 to 14 days per month for endometrial protection. There's also continuous progesterone, a daily dose. So you can see the synthetic progesterone and the micronized progesterone oral, which is the bioidentical version. And you can basically see when it's sequential, they want it to be 200 milligrams for 12 to 14 days of the month. It's higher because you're not taking it the whole month. And when it's every day for the whole month, you're taking 100 milligrams. Anything above this is considered highest dose. So even the highest dose that I told you about estradiol, 1.5 to 2, is considered high. So I would like you to look at this, and I hope it's not too complicated, And I would like you to go and look up what you're taking. And if it's beyond that, talk to your doctor. There is this form, as we talked about, this like physiologic form of hormone therapy dosing. It's based on something called the Wiley protocol, I believe. And you might recall Suzanne Summers was very enthusiastic about bioidentical hormones. This keeps you having like it mimics what you had before menopause. And this keeps you having like a monthly cycle. So you would know if that was the case. And this is my way of trying to answer your question. I hope I didn't cause more confusion, but you're going to the internationalmenopausesociety.org, or you're just Googling the 2023 Practitioner's Toolkit for Managing Menopause. You're scrolling down to MHT dosing and you're figuring this out. There are these tables on other Menopause Society websites. I know I found them on the British Menopause Society, all sort of spread out in a handy little chart for you. Good luck. I'm really happy that you wrote to me, Elizabeth. I'm sorry I can't write back, but I'm going to figure this out. So it was the Lunar New Year this week, January 29th. And from now on, I'm calling that the Hotflash Inc. New Year. It's just way too hard to come out of Christmas and feel like you have to overhaul your life. We need care and consideration in January. It is an interminable month for many people. One thing you can do in that Lunar New Year, now that it's happening, is give Mitopure a try. Mitopure is a precise dose of the rare postbiotic urothalin A. It promotes an essential process that clears out dysfunctional mitochondria. These are the battery packs that power your cells. So think of this like cellular vacuuming. We all got to vacuum sometimes, right? Mitopure is the only urothalin A supplement on the market clinically proven to target the effects of age-related cellular decline. Our cells are getting old just like we are. So feel the improved energy, better workouts, faster recovery, endurance, and more, all of which will help you achieve your Hotflash Inc. New Year's goals. Timeline is offering 10% off your order of Mitopure to Hotflash Inc. listeners. Go to timeline.com/hotflash. That's timeline.com/hotflash. So this week I went to Arab Health, which is a very large, what do you call it? Like a trade show at Dubai World Trade Center. It is out of control. They close all the roads around it. I went to it 2 years ago and it was like completely overwhelming. The crowds are massive. I thought I'm never coming back here again because I can't handle it. I got so fragmented. But my friend Sophie Smith, who's the founder of Nabta Health, which is a hybrid telehealth and women's health clinic, just doing amazing things. Sophie is in Dubai. She partnered with CMC Dubai and phoned me and said, do you want to do a keynote? And I was like, yes, I want to do a keynote. And what's really funny is the day before I had found out there's a wellness festival here and I had found out that there's a menopause panel, and it's my own fault. I didn't pitch myself, but they were doing a menopause session and I was feeling sorry for myself because I wasn't included. Although, no one does me any favors, but I was a little bit cheesed off about it. And then Sophie called me. So I'm like, yes, because I really do want to start becoming a speaker. And that's a way for me to help fund Hotflash and spread the word. So I went down there, had an overnight bag, bad mistake. It was very, very heavy. It had 2 laptops in it and I was sweating and I went to the wrong building. And it was crazy. And I started to panic, like I was never going to be able to find it. And then I was in the wrong hall 6, like there's 2, and I had to go out and around, and this bag was more heavy than anything. And I was panicking. And then it turned out that right when I was panicking and I actually felt like crying, I was so overwhelmed by all these people and all the noise that the booth was like, it was right behind me. So that was fine. One thing I thought was funny was that outside there was just a whole bunch of people vaping at this health trade show. Anyway, so I did a keynote 2 years ago. In my attempt to become a keynote speaker, you kind of need to have proof that you've given keynotes. And I did give one at a show and they told me that they would record it. And basically I went, I gave the talk, people sat, they listened. They always take pictures of the slides, which I just think is so funny. I'm like, what are you going to do with those pictures? Anyway, finished. The person who greeted me, who arranged for me to go speak at this health and wellness show, just disappeared and never answered her phone again. No video was ever forthcoming. I had taken the day off, drove all the way down to Dubai. So I was like, okay, this is not going to happen again. Will there be video? And the organizer said, yes, there'll be video. And then my friend said she was going to be there. And I said, maybe you can film it for me as a backup. And the thing is, she's my friend that I met online, but I never actually had met her. But I've talked to her loads. And she said, yeah, for sure. So I meet her down there. And, it's getting a bit hectic. It's not a huge thing. It's like a tiny, it's like a booth. It's not like I'm standing on a stage, with an earpiece giving a TED talk or like Tony Robbins. It's low key, but it's me speaking on a stage, and I'm talking about all the gaps I see that I've been talking about here and all how confusing that is for women. And it went so well. And as it's starting, I can't see the videographer, but it's like coming up to the time. And I didn't stand up for myself and say, where is the videographer? I want this recorded. And I didn't, because I'm still struggling with my post and pre-menopausal self. And this is one time where I just didn't say anything, but I knew I had my friend who was going to film it. And I'm like, you know what? That'll be good enough. A lot was going on and I was getting ready to speak. So she was so great. She held that phone up the entire time. I spoke for 25 minutes. I asked her to give me a 5-minute warning. She was flashing her hand. She was so into helping me. It warmed my heart. And it was great. Some people came up and talked to me after. And then loads of people milling around. It was a very hectic place to be giving a talk, but I didn't get lost. I had my slides. I think I did a really good job. I would like to play it for you here, but I don't have it. When I went over after to my friend, she started showing me, and she had taken a photograph. And that just makes me giggle, really, really giggle. In the talk, you're looking at people. And there was this one lady, and I just thought, man, you're not enjoying this at all. You have such a bad look on your face. You just your face is do you hate my talk? So I was trying not to look at her, but I couldn't help it because her face was sour. And then she came up to me after. She said, God, you did a great job. This is a really challenging environment. And it turns out she's some executive in hospitals in Canada, in the Canadian West. And she was like, oh, I thought you lived in Canada. I could bring you out. I'm like, hey, whatever. So you never know. What you're seeing is definitely not reality. So I kind of laughed it off about the video because it's not her fault. And I would have done the same thing. And if I really cared, I would have hired someone, although I just didn't know how to get them in. Anyway, I got pretty sad about it later. I'm not going to lie. I went to Sophie, who had a Majlis. I went down there. I felt, I just felt I was tired. I had to wait an hour for a car. Dubai is crazy. It's so crazy that I really start to lose my mind there. And people who live there love it, but I'm an Abu Dhabi girl. So I was feeling pretty sad. I was feeling like no one would help the little hen. And that's something that a guy who I used to work in a restaurant with decades ago when I was 20 said, this guy, Bill, awesome dude. I've written about him in the newsletter. One night he threw out a credit card bill. So over $250 or something like that. And he threw out the one you're supposed to keep, and he just wouldn't let it go. He's like, I am going to find that. And we had this disgusting giant garbage where we dump all the food in. And he just went through it at the end of the night with 2 giant metal spoons, just lifting it into another. And every now and then, we were all cleaning and trying to pretend that he wasn't doing it because we didn't want to help him because it was really gross. And there's cigarettes in there, because people used to smoke then. And just a couple of times I heard him say, no one would help the little hen. So that's how I was feeling. I called my best friend. I WhatsApped her. And when I came out of the Majlis is an Arabic traditional gathering. You have to sit on the ground, which is a little bit hard because I have some hip pain. And one man offered to help me up. And then it's funny because normally you'd just be like, oh yeah, sure. But I just was like, is he offering because I'm old? I don't know. Something, one of these things that happen when you start getting older. Anyway, I came out, she'd given me an amazing pep talk. And she said, actually, your story's really funny. Because to think that she was doing such a good job, but then just took a picture. So that was that. And so I don't have the video to get a keynote, but I was telling my friend the next day, and she actually knows the woman who has the speakers bureau that I was trying to get in. So we will see if I can go that way. And what will be, what will be. I really like talking about menopause and midlife. What else? So I've had a couple of encounters with medical doctors, and I'm not surprised about it because medical doctors have medical training. It's a very medical approach to the human body and mind. And I'm always surprised at how rigid the beliefs are and how many gaps there are in medical doctors' knowledge. And I don't say that to be like, oh, I know a lot. It's just in the beginning when I set out to do Hotflash Inc, I felt very, very insecure about not being a doctor. And then as time went on and I interviewed more and more doctors, I thought, no, I think this is a good thing because I can lift up and I can see medical doctors over here. I can see integrative physicians and naturopathic doctors over here and everyone in between. And I can see the gaps in training and the belief systems. So when I run into problems with doctors, first of all, on social media, it's always about the prevention and benefits of hormone therapy. And I think if you've listened to this platform for a while, you know that I'm like, I want anything that will help women to improve their quality of life and make them healthier. I'm also not a huge fan of just like drugs and interventions. I think when you add things into your life, even supplements, you're lining yourself up for the benefits, but also the side effects. And I'm a particularly sensitive person physically, so I think I'm more sensitive to that. But, you know, the current narrative about hormone therapy is not backed up in the evidence, although some people believe it is. And that narrative is that hormone therapy will prevent cardiovascular disease and dementia. And we've talked about this before. Sure, hormones have a protective effect when we're in our fertile years, and there are changes that happen when those hormones recede, but it's a matter of belief system and reading of the evidence for you to conclude that that then means that you need to keep them replaced to prevent disease, or you just need to support yourself through the transition, take them if you like. The bottom line is that no guiding body in the world recommends hormone therapy to prevent dementia or cardiovascular disease or cancer or to live longer. And as Dr. Anise Mukherjee wrote on Instagram this week and made a video, she said, you know, there's a lot of problems with the menopause research we have. We don't have enough. And a lot of it's done on healthy women. So you have like a healthy woman bias. And this is a problem with medical research. So women who go on hormone therapy just tend to be healthier and more highly educated. And so if I ever skirmish with doctors, it's usually about that. And I'll get a comment like, we should talk, or I can explain it to you. And I just always think it's a bit funny because it's like, well, I can explain it to you. You know, like you can explain why you believe that. And then I'll explain to you why I believe it. But I believe I have more evidence backing up what I say. And believe me, I swear to you, if we get a meta-analysis that says hormone therapy prevents dementia, prevents cardiovascular disease, I'll be the first to tell you about it. So anyway, that's usually what I'll end up skirmishing about. This week I had two different discussions. One was with a neuroscientist who I've talked with before. And she's concerned because I once said in a comment that it's healthier to ovulate. And she commented about Dr. Jerry Lynn Pryor's podcast and said that she felt I should be more careful if I'm speaking to someone who's doing research, who's saying something like it's healthier to ovulate, that I should painstakingly go over that research. And I just couldn't argue with it because she's got a belief system. And to me, I don't need to show you evidence to say it's healthier to ovulate. We were born to ovulate, and I don't think we ovulate just to have children. And I don't think you would say to a man, like, you don't need to make sperm or have any of that function. We'll just put you on a drug and we'll just take you off of it when you're ready to impregnate someone. And that's what happens with the pill. And that's why, Dr. Jerry Lynn Pryor was saying I'm conflicted about the pill. That's why a lot of us are conflicted about the pill, because we want the autonomy over our own bodies, but we wonder what happened to us. So, her thing is like, you should be more careful. I'm really careful. And you should interview this person. Sort of like coming down like the heavy, and that's fine. I think that's a very sort of doctoral thing to do. But that happened, and that was the second time, and I just didn't engage anymore because Some people are just like not at all prepared to listen, particularly in medicine. And that's why the expert panel that I've put together in Hotflash Inc. is composed of people who I just don't feel are like that. There's people who have a sense of curiosity and they're not sort of going to argue to the death and try to smack me down and act like the board of directors of the way Hotflash Inc. should be run. I am happy to engage with anyone, but I don't like to engage with people who just want to school me on why I'm wrong. That doesn't really seem like it's an open spirit. Now, I had a psychiatrist write to me, and I thought this was interesting because she said, I'm really concerned about your use of the forgotten side of medicine and a Midwestern doctor, because I shared in my newsletter on the weekend his look at the dark side of antidepressants. And I shared it. First of all, the Forgotten Side of Medicine and a Midwestern Doctor is a newsletter I've been reading for quite a while. And, you know, the mainstream medicine, how great drugs are and how great interventions are, that gets a lot of press, right? He's writing about the Forgotten Side of Medicine. So, you know, we don't often hear about the wrong things that go wrong with antidepressants. And that information is like kind of hard to come by. So I thought that I would share that with people because women are still ending up on antidepressants, even though it is not a treatment for perimenopause. Like maybe you want to have antidepressants and maybe there's some additional problems on top, but perhaps some progesterone would help, or just even knowing you were in perimenopause and some minerals, you know, like there's all sorts of ways we can go about this. This is sort of a hormonal situation happening. So this doctor just said, I'm concerned about you endorsing him. And, you know, her argument was he should be writing about both sides of the story. Well, I mean, it's called the Forgotten Side of Medicine. And, yes, of course, there's side effects, but there's side effects with every drug. This is a very common thing. And I said, you know, I'll take it under advisement because everything I was going to explain just sounded like I was being defensive. The thing is, he's anonymous. I feel comfortable with his anonymity because he's a mainstream doctor. You don't give anonymity to very many people in journalism. You give it to people who are at risk of losing their life or their livelihood for what they're saying. And that's why he's anonymous. And so, you know, she did use the word dangerous. It's dangerous to share this. And this is something else that you get from doctors. When you talk about alternative things, it's dangerous to talk about it. And I don't think it's dangerous to share information. And if you're here, you know that. But she liked my comment, and I'm glad to have her on the newsletter list. And it's a bit nerve-wracking to have doctors, but I think they want to learn too. So I don't share stuff like that very often, but I will because it's out there. You know what I'm saying? Okay, so what else happened this week? Okay, one thing that's been going on is that, as we know, my father died in February. It's been almost a year. It's crazy. He fell down his stairs, off the top of his stairs. I think he tripped on his slipper and he fell backwards and he had brain bleeds and he was in the hospital for 8 days. And I managed to get home and communicate with him. And, you know, it was a huge shock. He was 80, but very healthy. And I find I really get defensive when people say, like, act like he had a fall, like he was old. Cause it's like, no, he tripped, like he fell. It could have happened to a 30-year-old, although a 30-year-old might have pulled through. They do tell you a lot, like, you know, the age is a big thing. Anyway, so I was really like feeling really good when that happened physically. I had organized all my issues. I was eating amazing. I had a lot of energy and I was very slim. You know, everyone was commenting at my dad's funeral how slim I was. And that's something I'm really sick of during my life because, you know, I tilt to curvy and I will lose weight and get in really good shape, but then, you know, life will get in the way. And so I'm just tired of how much attention you get when you're slim and knowing like, I'm not going to gain a ton of weight, but I'm not going to be like, probably that Slim Jim's going to last for a year and then I'll start veering and then I have to come back. That's just the way it is. Anywho, I had a real tough time when I came back here. I've had a really tough time. And it started to feel better last fall, but anyone who's lost someone who's that close will just know. And also I started a contract in an office where they just have the most exquisite food literally almost every day. And it's cakes and cookies and chocolate. And like, I just started eating it every day. So anyway, I know there's a big debate in perimenopause and midlife nutrition about whether you can eat sugar or not. I've had Jen Salib Huber on the podcast. I would scroll back and look for that one. And you can hear me saying to her, you know, I don't know. And she says you can eat sugar. And she said the reason, you know, I don't like eating sugar because when I eat sugar, I want more sugar. She says that because I don't allow myself to have any sugar. don't think that's the case because I started allowing myself to have sugar when I started that new job, and I pretty much never stopped. And I was ordering myself cookies and cake and having, alcohol. And I was not drinking a lot, but like just doing things I don't normally do. And, slowly started to put on a little bit of weight. I'm not so worried about that. I really struggled with getting back to exercise. I haven't been working out very much. I've been stopping and starting and trying to find the right thing. And slowly my body just started to get more and more sore. And I'm sitting a lot, right? Because I'm doing this contract, which is working for a museum, and I'm doing Hotflash. And it's just a lot of sitting. Anyway, the long and the short of it is I've been walking. I'm trying to get away. I'm just getting more and more sore. My body is getting more and more sore. My hips are getting more and more sore. It was before Christmas and then I just kind of hit a wall in the last couple of weeks. I was in so much physical pain, and my hips were brutal. And it reminded me of the way I was in my 40s when I for sure had the musculoskeletal syndrome of menopause. And I was thinking, I got to go get diagnosed with arthritis or fibromyalgia or something. And then I went on the Whole30 diet, which cuts out sugar, dairy, wheat, legumes, and anything processed, any refined sugar. And so it was just this weekend where I was like, after I ordered myself chocolate cake, you can order anything in Abu Dhabi. And I was like, this is for the birds. So 2 weeks ago, I went for a sports massage because this is what happens when you're in this kind of pain. You're getting a sports massage and you're going to physio and you're spending so much money and you're trying to get a ball and a band and you're like trying to figure out how to deal with it. So I went to the sports massage. I was telling him what went on, and he said, if you've worked out your whole life, it's going to be really hard on your body if you're not moving enough. So he advised me to start exercising, doing weights 4 times a week. And I found on my Sweat app, which I love, Sweat, it's Kyla Eitsine's app. I was doing Kelsey Wells, but I found a strength and mobility. It's lower body, upper body, lower body, upper body. So I started to do that. Even though I was in pain, I started walking. And then on the weekend, I was like, okay, you've got to just don't go Whole30 yet. Like I'm learning, I used to just try to do everything all at once. I'm like, okay, no, just cut the sugar out this week. And I started doing my pain-free exercises. Peter Egoscue he's got a book called Pain Free. And that's just about the greatest book if you're having problems with your back or your hips or whatever. So it's Thursday that I'm recording this. It's been 3 days of no sugar, 4 days of no sugar, and the pain-free exercises and a sports massage, and I feel better. It's still hurting, but it's way better. And so I don't really know why sugar inflames me so much. My best friend said she also is having the same issue, and she has cut out sugar and it's been fine. But this is the way it is. And I've lived for years without eating sugar and just having a bite here or there, and I can have a piece of cake, I can have a beer, but just not on a continuous basis. So I just wanted to share that with you because I think it's just very easy to lie to yourself. And I write about this stuff all the time. And I was in a lot of pain and I just wasn't admitting it to myself. And it would hurt to roll over in bed again. And to me, that's not very good. And on the subject of weightlifting and working out, look, I'm like you guys, I'm an average person. I was an athlete when I was a teenager. I was a competitive figure skater. I got really into running in my 30s and I ran a half marathon. But that's it. I'm not an athlete, nor do I aspire to be an athlete. Perhaps maybe that's something for my 60s. But I just want to work out. I don't want a big, hairy deal. And so I've been approached by a couple of people to get involved with everyone wants in on us, our midlife women. And these were just like really intense programs where, you're counting macros, which is something I just sort of do casually. I make sure I have enough protein. I make sure I have carbs. I make sure I have fiber. I make sure I have, I do that, but I don't have a scale, and nor do I want one. I don't want to send people pictures of me in the gym. I don't want to get a weight belt. I believe that, I know I have all my personal history. I know when I start working out and I watch what I eat, my body composition will change and I'll be pleased and I'll feel stronger and I'll feel lighter and everything will be okay. So, I was approached by a couple of programs and I could make a lot of money if I promoted them, but I couldn't do them. And I can't make money doing something I'm not going to do. I do have affiliate programs. I do recommend things. They're products that I've tried that I believe in. I'm not going to take anything And I'm not saying I will never do those programs, but I think we just need to get moving. We just need to get lifting, pushing, jumping, and however you can do it, just do it, because you will feel so much better. I've been weightlifting now, again, like 4 days a week. I feel so good. It just jazzes, it energizes your body, it moves your body, it sends pulses, it makes you feel better. So I just wanted to say that. This is really going on a long time. Let me see. In a positive way, I didn't insist on getting the footage to get my keynote recorded, but something did happen yesterday. An old colleague asked me if I would fill in. He works for a big event and they want to record. They have big speakers coming into town and they want to record podcasts with them and run them throughout the year. So obviously it's just like a last minute thing and he doesn't have any hosts, and he asked me if I would do some interviews, and I want to help him out, and you never know. And so I said yes, but I woke up in the middle of the night and I'm like, I don't even have a car. And I had to, my car's in the shop. I have a really great old car and the hood's getting painted because the sun's really strong here and it like disintegrated and I need to get it registered again. And so it's been in the shop for a long time. So I already had to take a taxi up there. I'm not getting, there's no money for this gig that I'm helping him with. And I thought, well, I'm not paying for another taxi. Like, this is crazy. So I said to him, dude, I don't have my car. And I'm rethinking this whole thing and I'm really sorry. But I saw a clip from Viola Davis and she had said, if it comes to disappointing someone else or disappointing yourself, you have to choose someone else. And yes, I need to think more before I say yes, but I'm not paying for a taxi up to a gig that's not paying to help out someone. This is just too much. So then he said, would you take a carpool? Because my sister's coming up. And I said, I started to get really annoyed just thinking at the word carpool. That's not what I want to do on Saturday, and I want to get up. I want to get out. I want to make the most of my day. I've got stuff to do. So I said, actually, I really don't. I don't want to be waiting around before or after. And I was talking, I'm like, God, listen to you diva. And then I was like, no, this is ridiculous. Why would I do this? And he said, totally understand. Guess what? He's sending a car. It's picking me up. It's taking me there. I'm doing the interviews. It's bringing me home. You got to ask. And what I think is so funny is I have the thoughts. I have the inclination to overfunction, but I mostly catch myself. I'm mostly standing up for myself more and more and more. And I am so impressed. And I think, look what happened. How many times in the past would I have taken and paid for the taxi and been mad and brought bad energy to the gig? And this is happening less and less. So this is why I get so upset when people shit talk menopause. Because there are so many women like me saying how great it is. And then we just get this like, you're diseased and you're in a permanent state of whatever. So this is menopause. We contain multitudes, people. That's it. That's all I've got to say this week. I want to shout out to Steph Ziev. Oh my God, I just paused it to look up an Instagram to tell you about Steph Ziev's TED Talk. And then I looked at Instagram for 15 minutes and pictures of plastic surgery. I don't know why there's so many pictures of plastic surgery aimed at me. Anyway, she is speaking at TEDx Morningside Heights. She was on the podcast in Jan, and I'm very excited for her. She's a really, really cool person, and we share in common. We're both single, never been married, and we like to live in apartments. We don't like houses with doors that people can get in. Also, she really changed my life when she's like, who's at the head of your table? Who's running this show? And I've put that into practice. So I would encourage you to go back and listen to that. I care about you a lot. Send me a text. I'll try to figure out how to text back or leave a message or a comment, like, rate, review, follow, do everything you can. Thank you so much for being a part of this community. Thank you so much for listening to me. I hope these haven't been the ramblings of a crazy woman. We'll be back with some interviews next week, and have a great weekend.
Hotflash Inc. was created and is hosted by Ann Marie McQueen, produced and edited by Sonia Mack. The information contained in this podcast is intended for informational purposes only and is not intended for the purpose of diagnosing, treating, curing, or preventing any disease. Before using any products referenced on the podcast, consult with your healthcare provider, read all labels, and heed all directions and cautions that accompany the products. Information received through the podcast should not be used in place of a consultation or advice from a healthcare provider. If you suspect you have a medical problem, i.e. menopause or anything else, or any healthcare questions, please promptly see your healthcare provider. This podcast, including Ann Marie McQueen and any producers or editors, disclaim any responsibility from any possible adverse effects from the use of any information contained herein. Opinions of guests on this podcast are their own, and the podcast does not endorse or accept responsibility for statements made by guests. This podcast does not make any representations or warranties about a guest's qualifications or credibility. This podcast may contain paid endorsements and advertisements for products or services. Individuals on this podcast may have direct or indirect financial interest in products or services referred to herein. This podcast is owned by Hotflash Inc. Media.